Hey, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Arif Halaby along with Jeff Gerard. All right, your family's finances. What do we do at the end of the year? One of those things we talked about is, of course, putting together the insurance plan that you have, and how do you make sure that you're doing okay in the payments, and if you can save money. Don't ever compromise. Look, we want to talk about this down the road, Jeff, often, because although insurance is a commodity, and of course part of your planning is to save money, save fees, cut down those expenses, don't forget that there's a service component, right? There's a balance between, I want to save money, but I also want to be treated properly, right? There's a difference if you go to one of the discount, super whatever motel down the street and the Ritz-Carlton, right? When you agree, a Motel 6 and a Ritz-Carlton. They have different purposes. I've stayed at both of those places. I can tell you I liked the way I was treated at a Ritz-Carlton. If I could yell loud enough between the bulletproof glass, the Motel 6 guy was able to hear me and generally take care of most of what I needed.
But they're both called a place to sleep, right?
They are. And when you close your eyes, you don't really kind of know where you are, as long as there's loud music to cover the loud music. Because you're in a place where you're buying something different, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere between those two is probably a place that you want to kind of live your life every day, depending on your financial situation. Well, it's the same thing. You might save quite a bit of money, but the service, or if you have a car accident and you have a claim and they're not getting back to you and they're not sending you a check and they lost your paperwork, well, there's a point in time when you're going to be paying for something that is actually much less expensive by paying in cash than paying in other inconveniences. So kind of balance that out. I want to make sure you get that. It's not all about the dollars and cents.
Right, and I think that's an important thing to remember is the back end of the, property and casualty insurance, as it's called, auto and homeowners. That claim side, the back end of it, the servicing is really important, and there are folks that do it really well. And look, you might pay the same price as if you had the 800 number that you go to if you had two different insurances, but a lot of people go to that more comforting, the big three out there. They might go to some other names that are coming up in the ranks, certainly over the last, decade or so, and there are a lot of agents that are doing that. So again, I love what you just brought up there, Arif, because a lot of that comes into that relationship side. And when you have somebody you can go to and physically call, heck, you might even have your agent's cell phone number and you can call them at 3 a.m. if you had an accident or something. So that's a good thing to remember.
And each of you have an area or a line that you're not willing to accept a discount service from. Some of you wash your own car. Well, if you choose to do that, you know that you're going to give up 1 or 2 hours on a Saturday so that you could wash your car. Some of you say, I'm willing to spend $5 or $8 or $10 so somebody else can wash my car so I can buy back 2 hours on a Saturday and watch the game or hang out with my wife or my kids or my husband. Those are things that you're going to want to do. Value that time. You see how that there's different components than just money. All right, next. Each employer has the opportunity to offer a retirement plan in the United States. Depending on the size of the company, the type of employer, how they earn their money, there are different types of jobs or companies out there. And one of those, of course, for your company, if it's an everyday kind of a for-profit company, is something called a 401k. 401ks also can have a component of profit sharing. What that means is at the end of the year, they value the number and they say, okay, we've made X amount of dollars, and this is how we split it amongst our employees. So here's the number that each person gets.
That's right. So most people know a 401k as the contributory side, meaning you put contributions in each and every paycheck or every month, however often you get paid. But there's also that side that Arif's talking about that the company can put in without you doing that. So there's really kind of 3 parts in a lot of cases is, number 1, the money you're putting in. Number 2, there might be a match coming from the company. So you've probably heard a lot of this, 100% of 5%. We won't get into all that for the time being. But if you put in, a certain amount of money, they'll match it. But then there's also that extra component that they have the ability to put in if they're profitable. That's why they call it profit sharing plans.
Yeah, and that gives you as the employee only the ability to participate in some of these plans if you actually participate in the plan. Mm-hmm. So many of you, I'm not going to save money for retirement because I don't plan on being here for 30 years. Well, yeah, surprise. You probably didn't plan on being there this long, and it's been 6 or 8 or 10 years. Right. And you've lost that opportunity to put money into those plans. The day you are eligible, I don't care what the company is or how long you're going to be there, or you think in your mind, start the plan, put in 5 or even 10%. If it was a perfect world, I would say 10% just by waking up in the morning.
Yep.
Put in 10% of your money, save 10% when you get your paycheck for emergencies. Take 10% and put it aside for charity or charitable giving, and then you're going to live on 70%. Oh, but Arif, I can't. Well, then you need to get there. It might take you 6 weeks or 6 months, but you need to get there because that is how you're going to protect yourself. You're going to work every day. Who's going to work for you? Who? You make sure the dry cleaner, he or she goes on a great vacation. Listen, the guy who owns the gas station, his kids have a wonderful college. Nothing wrong with that. And the people at the grocery store, the manager, the shareholders, those people have a wonderful retirement plan. You don't. Do you see where I'm going? You've gone to work, you get the money, and you make sure the world is, in your world, is all taken care of. Who is taking care of you? So here's how we're going to do it. 10% go into a savings account at the credit union or a community bank. It's my favorite. I want you to be in some place where you're important, not where you're just a number. Number 2 is I want 10% to go to a charitable event. If you're a religious type person, you want to go to a charity or your church or an organization. I think that's powerful. And then the third place is that 10% for emergency savings. That works very nicely. And look, one more thing we need to bring up is, my daughter is starting her in her senior year of high school, of college at this point. And so I have to, because it is the holidays, I have to say how awesome she is, because that's how I get my bakery treats. I just need to make sure I do that at 12:30. All right, we're good?
I think we're good. Did you cover that?
I get my treats now.
Okay.
Just so you know how awesome she is. Did I say she's awesome?
She's a great baker, too.
She is a wonderful baker.
What I recall.
I'll
need something to refresh my memory, like, I don't know, maybe baked goods or something.
She might bring them to the office.
Yeah, she might have to. Yeah, just to refresh my memory.
She's growing up.
But I like you're talking about the breaking up of savings. Some people think, I have to save in a particular area until I meet my goal, and then I have to save in another particular area once I meet my goal, and I can't start the next layer of savings until I meet that goal. Taking that 30% in this example, I think is a great place to start. Now you've covered short-term emergencies, you've covered retirement, because we don't want to neglect that, because you can't save for retirement once you get there. And then the charitable side, I think, is always a wonderful component, and it helps us remember, kind of who we are and why we should give back. So.
And also, it's the habit. So even if you can't start at the full 10%, you've created this desire, this habit of consistently putting aside money, so that as your pay increases, you increase the amount of dollars that you're saving as well. So it's this consistent movement of a lifestyle that breeds success when you're at an older age. Because the last thing you want to do is get to this place where you feel like you're living hand to mouth and you're in this subsistence life. And a lot of people are there, and you feel like, man, I just can't get ahead. I'm working 20 hours a day. I'm driving, an hour and a half each way, and I work 6 days, 7 days. I'm just burning out, right? If you're at that place, something has to change. Otherwise, you end up in this position of trying to figure out life in a very, with your back against the wall, a very unfortunate situation.
Well, and that's a great time, and I think especially the end of the year, I think it just supersedes retirement. That whole kind of financial house that you're talking about, you didn't say it that way, but I think that's where you're going with it, is that if you're making sure everybody else has money, everything you earn is basically doling out to everywhere except you, and you're not paying yourself first. It's a great time to review that, because no one says you have to have a $200 a month cable bill. No one says you have to have that expensive insurance. No one says you absolutely have to have that expensive cell phone plan.
Yeah, when do you pay off your cell phone?
Never.
When do you pay off your cable bill?
Never.
You don't end up in a place where it ever gets paid off.
So to make that mistake, and we all do it because we get on that treadmill, right? The life treadmill, and we go, oh my gosh, my back's against the wall. How am I ever going? You know what? It's my darn employer. He doesn't pay me enough. She doesn't pay me enough. I haven't gotten a raise in 3 years. Yeah, and then now you start to build in resentment. Take a look back at your life where you can cut back on some expenses. Don't blame everybody else. Don't blame the hand that's feeding you. The job pays what it pays. You're able to keep what you're able to keep, and that is the most powerful key. Because remember, when we made $30,000 a year, Arif, I mean, we thought if you could just get to $40,000,
that's it.
No, you know what? I know that guy down the street makes $50,000. When he got to $50,000, his life changed, and so will mine. Then you get to $50,000, then what happens?
Spend it all.
That's right.
And you need another 10.
Yeah,
Most Americans believe that $10,000 added to their annual income would be life-changing, life-improving. And yet, if you look historically, people have made more than that per year improvement over, maybe it has taken 5 years to get there, but people have made more than that, and they are consistently growing. And as they're doing that, they end up in a place where they're trying to still figure out why they can't get to where they need to be financially. And it's often because of the habits. It's the structural spending and the way that you spend. So one of the other things that we want to talk about towards the end of the year is preparing to build the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student assistance. I think there might be another F in there, but it's the plan that says I'm putting aside money for my kid's life. That's nice, but the FAFSA form reports all those, and it's a snapshot in time, and you're going to want to do that in January, usually the first week of January, because there's some free money, grants and tuition. So that means right now you're preparing for that period of time. And that means right now you're going to usually look, in some cases, for the payments or the bills that you have, or the formula you have set aside in December. So we want to get into how that is going to be structured so that you're not in a place to where that the application is done, you're in an unfavorable financial situation. So after the next break, I want to get and cover some of the ways to build your financial life so that FAFSA form for your college student, whether they're in the first year of college or the last year of high school or the last year of college, that form is still universally used by most universities and colleges, unless you're just going to write a check and pay off the school. Right, a lot of people just write the check they want for privacy reasons. No, we have enough money to pay for your student, your college. Here's just a check. That's fine. But for many of us, you do have to still write that form.
And that can be affected by, a number of things that we're going to get into, especially where your money is held. If you're holding money for your children in particular accounts, and, sometimes we think we're doing them a service by depositing a bunch of money and saving up this college fund, so to speak, in a certain fashion, and yet the government looks at it differently, or the school might look at it differently. So you have to be careful with that. So the end of the year is a great time to look at that too, because something else that's kind of, I think, confusing for people is the start of the school year or a semester versus when you actually fill out that FAFSA form, because there could be it could be off by a couple of months. It's not like, hey, we fill out the FAFSA and then start school the next month. It's not typically how it works. So there's some strategizing in there you have to do. And
here on some of the last things at the end of the year, I want you to look at your company's benefit package, especially if you've started a new company or there's been a takeover. Some of the things we want to do before the end of the year is walk into your human resources department and ask if there are any new benefits, if there's any new programs. Now, if there were in the mid-year, they've sent you those forms, and that's fine, but the chances are you may have tossed them in the trash, or it was part of the, hey, let's get flu shot Friday, everybody come on it, and you threw that away and said, I didn't really care about it. Well, in there, they may have been, hey, by the way, we're now giving you notice that you're now eligible for this type of a life insurance plan or this type of a health insurance supplemental plan. Those kinds of plans are often not given to you in this big fanfare of event, depending on the size of company. Mm-hmm. So it's up to you to reach out to your employer, and this is a good time of year to see if there are any benefits that are changed, offered, increased, or even decreased. We had a gentleman come in a few years ago, and he walked in and he says, I don't need life insurance because I have a $500,000 plan at work. Okay, that's fine. So we do our little intake sheet. We're taking stuff down. I said, can you just bring a copy of it so we know, when it expires and what it is, so we can notate it and make sure we remind you. And he sits down and comes in his next meeting as if he saw a ghost. And we said, what happened? He said, well, and this was April. He said, in February 1st, they canceled our life insurance. And I have had heart issues and other concerns that don't allow me to qualify for any life insurance. So I was counting on that policy, either when it ended or when it increased, changing it as long as it stayed within that company. They allowed certain adjustments to it. But since it has now lapsed and 30 days at least have passed, I don't qualify for anything. That means his wife and children have zero life insurance options, because he wasn't staying on top of it, and it had been canceled months earlier, and he didn't have a choice. What is he going to do next? It's over. What's the next step? Well, he now has to build his financial life going forward without life insurance as a part of the plan. So he just better hope he doesn't pass away, and make sure his kids and his wife, and he eliminates debt and saves for her future in case he dies before, they've saved up enough money. And the kids' colleges, of course, have to be paid. So those are things that are part of the plan. Many of you young people out there's some of you that listen, and maybe some of you are forced to. You need to always think plan B. What if your mom and dad cannot afford to pay for your college? What do you do? What, just because you were born here? You're born in America, you're born with this mom and dad, you have this last name, you just think you have a college that's free? There is no such thing. Somebody's paying for it. You're a rich neighbor, the guy we hate down the street. He or she's paying taxes so that you could go to attend school, right? Or the company, that big, mean, evil company up north or back east, they're paying taxes so you can go to school. But most likely, there's a portion left for you and your family. So you have to have a plan B, whether you start out at a community college, and you've heard us sing the praises of College of the Canyons right here in town, or whether or not you are working part-time and taking part-time classes, whatever that process is like, but have a backup plan for some part or even all of your college expenses. Just a side note, because we're seeing sometimes you get to age 18 or 19 or 20, and you thought that there was a plan. Well, your parents invested in X and it fell apart, or your dad thought he was going to keep the same career, the same job, and that falls apart. So now what? Do you expect your parents, and parents, do you communicate to your kids that you expect them, come heck or high water, at the sacrifice of the rest of the children, of your future, your retirement, your home, that little Jimmy or Susie can go off to college and have it paid for? I think you have to think twice about that and have a secondary plan.
I think that might even be part of the definition of wisdom. It's because when I was a kid, I thought, I have a plan and it's just going to work out. And that plan B you're talking about, that contingency plan, is so valuable to have. And it's a great reminder of what can happen, and to kind of not be, on your heels when, life throws a curveball at you. And a lot of times, especially as young people, we're putting a lot of faith and a lot of, stock in our parents or our elders or whomever's taking care of us and guiding us. But look, life happens to all of us, and it can happen at any age. And just because I'm 20 years older than some of my kids, or 25 years older than some of my kids, or 30 years older than some of my kids, doesn't mean that I won't have challenges and that their lives won't be affected because of that. So teaching yourself to not only have that contingency plan, like, maybe individual life insurance outside of your work. Reviewing those benefits means taking a look at what they offer, and if it's a benefit, can it be taken away? I think the answer is yes. And so if that's the case, and you're not warned about that, having that individual life insurance, you can do it pretty inexpensively as long as you qualify. So keeping that in mind, teach your kids some of those things, because I know even, rearing my children now, they think that, my son wants to go to the NBA. Fantastic. I hope he does, and I'm going to help him try to get there. But if he doesn't, it's kind of that heartbreaking point in time where someone realizes, I wanted to be in the major leagues to play baseball, but in high school I wasn't good enough to do that. So contingency plan had to come into play. So don't set yourself up for that disaster or failure.
I was supposed to be a supermodel.
What happened?
I'm still working on it.
Oh, okay.
If it doesn't happen, I'm going to try this financial thing. We'll come back in just a minute as we continue. Total Financial Solutions, Save for Money Hour. The old baseball player and supermodel right here, Arif, Halaby, and Jeff Gerard. Guess which one I am? AM 1220 KHTS. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hours. We finish this hour of the program. We're talking about a couple of things when it comes to some of the end of the year planning. Now, we talked a little bit about FAFSA and what to do and to plan for the application for the student aid. Keep this in mind. The FAFSA form is a function of countable and non-countable assets, meaning there are some things that count and some things that don't count towards the reduction of the amount of student aid, grants, or tuition assistance that you can receive based on your financial scenario. So, for example, somebody could be come from a family that's multimillionaires, but if the assets are all held in an uncountable or non-countable form, they may get more financial aid than somebody who has a working class family. They make, a teacher and a policeman, or a nurse and a firefighter, and they're working blue collar jobs, but they hold their assets in a countable form. Then they may end up paying a greater share towards the cost of tuition than the wealthier family. Now, you have heard me say this for years. Who makes the rules? Rich or poor people? Right. It's not a secret, right? Rich people. Now, it used to be that if you were friends with or knew a very wealthy person, or if you would, at the dinner table or at the golf course or the men's club, the gentlemen's association room in the back of the smoky cigar room, you would have a conversation about what to do next, how to build your financial life for you and your family. But those advantages are gone. That was the reason that a lot of women said, oh, we need to have admittance to all of these clubs. That's where the information on how to really be wealthy. Well, why are we supporting colleges and universities? Well, that teaches you really good about math. Okay, well, what about how to be successful and financially, planning properly? Well, that comes from, at least back in the day, they said, those associations, those programs, those places. Today, it's all found on the internet, isn't it? It's all found in one simple place, where you can get the information from. What does it take for you to build wealth and succeed? It doesn't come automatically from just air. It comes from the information that's now free, available to everybody. Did you know that? Secrets to success, wealth, happiness, it's all right there on the internet. It's not anymore the secret that's kept in the corner. So I share that with you because on the other side, the information on how to plan properly so that your family receives a better formula when it comes to this, the FAFSA form is simple. Non-countable assets are things like retirement plans, IRAs, 401ks, your primary residence. You can have a $10 million house that you live in. It's paid off. $10 million. Yep, this doesn't get counted. Sorry, not counted towards the formula. You can have $1 million in your retirement plan, and your kids can still get a free ride at different colleges and universities.
Rich people making the rules again.
Well, it never ended. You know, it's always been that way, by the way.
True.
Did you realize that, folks? Yeah. The world has not changed. And I think because wealthy people have always made the rules, this is the first time in history, I'd say in the last 20 years, where the playing field has truly been level. America kind of took it to nearly a level playing field because we allowed anybody, we just didn't have to tell you the rules, right? Nobody had to learn the rules unless they wanted to, and if you did, they applied to you. You can go back, how you had former very poor immigrants coming to this nation, slaves, Indian, Native American people. All of these folks had nothing and within one generation built up wealth. Go back 200 years. But today, everybody has access to the same set of rules in the same system. So I get excited about that because I'm glad I'm alive to see a time when you can have people come to this nation, sleep in the back of a donut shop or a nail salon, and in 10 years they own the place. Build a business out of nothing, and their children go to medical school and become a brain surgeon. I know somebody who has a child who is a heart surgeon, and the other child is a dentist that's an orthodontic specialist. And the parents came to this country as refugees with a few dollars in their pocket and a suitcase, and they fled an oppressive regime. So do you see how it takes a little bit of time? But it can happen. And with the FAFSA form, here are some of the rules. Retirement accounts and primary residence are not counted. So you can have money in your Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, your 401ks, and those are not counted. But additionally, if you are the student and you're working, you can put money in the Roth, R-O-T-H, Roth IRA account. If you qualify for it, it's usually about $5,500 is the number, and not have that counted against you in the formula on trying to become to get some student aid. That's nice.
It is, because a lot of people are out there working and they're looking for a place to save, and if they have the money outside of that in that countable side, then they think, okay, I'm saving for college, but really that dollar that you're saving might buy you a couple of units, it might buy you some books, but it may count against you in a greater number than you're holding. So you might have $1,000, but it may cost you, I don't know, that amount or more in the student aid that you did not get. So it kind of cancels itself out more than what it's worth, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, especially if you're thinking, it's difficult because you're thinking, well, wait a second, it's discouraging me from saving, it's discouraging me from building my...
No, save in the right place.
That's right, it's where it goes, it means everything. And as you're building that savings account, I want you to also focus on things that are of equal importance, meaning corporations and closely held corporations and daddy owns a business and those kinds of things, that can still hurt you financially for the financial aid. But employing your children can help you. For many of you, you have small businesses, consider employing your kids. If you're going to pass assets, dollars from you to your children, and they're working for you during the summer, and you're going to pay for their school anyway, and you're their only job, and if you send $5,000 to them, if they work and earn $5,000, but you say, and I'm not going to pay you, I'm going to actually pay your school, it leaves your tax bracket, goes to them, because it's underneath the limit, they don't have to pay income tax on the money. Now you might take those dollars and pay their school, so now you get a tax break on the first $5,000, $5,700, depending on the formula, and you don't have to pay income tax on that money as a small business owner because you've employed your kids, and those dollars are being used anyway for school that you would have used them for anyway. You see where I'm going with that is consider meeting with your tax professional, your financial professional, put together a team and a formula that works best for you. Managing that free application for student assistance is very important. You do not have to pay people, and I know a couple folks going around charging you thousands of dollars to do this, and they use that as an excuse to get some of your assets and move them over into places. Be very cautious with that. Thanks for listening. I'm Arif Halaby, Jeff Gerard. Stay tuned after the top of the hour. We have a lot more for you on AM 1220 KHTS.